mit der Akzeptanz der 4 Grundfreiheiten und dazu gehört auch die Freizügigkeit der Personen. Brexit means Brexit.
Hello and welcome to another Brexitometer brought to you by the Martin Centre. I'm Angelos and I'm joining you from King's College London, and together we will continue exploring the process of the UK leaving the EU. A lot has happened since our last meeting. Most importantly, Theresa May has called a general election for the 8th of June. This is an event that will clearly shape in important ways the process of Brexit, and the Brexitometer will be there to discuss all the implications with you. But for now, let's turn to 3 questions that you sent to me this week. Our first question comes from Facebook, and it's from Jan Henriksson, who is asking, what do the Britons actually expect for their economy outside of the EU? What will be their next trading partners, and how will their all-famous banking and financial sector fare outside of the EU? Well, Jan, this is a very excellent question, but as with so many things concerning Brexit nowadays, the answers are far from clear. There are many scenarios about what the UK will want to do once it is outside of the EU, for example with its trade. There have been discussions that the UK might be ahead of the queue to sign a trade agreement with Donald Trump's United States. Other Brexiteers are dreaming of closer trade relations with the Commonwealth. The problem is that all of those options imply that the UK will have to approach its trade partners as just one other trade partner, a country on its own. It means that the UK will not have the wherewithal that it has now as being part of the world's largest trading bloc, which is the EU. So people who expect the UK to have big ambitions and big successes as a trading nation after Brexit should actually be very careful. It's gonna be a tough life for the UK as a standalone country in the global trading field. With regards to banking, this is also a very delicate question. Yes, the UK is a global financial center, but does the value of the city and London, will it remain the same once the UK is outside of the EU? And once perhaps crucial financial services leave London to move inside the EU in other cities in Europe? Again, we simply don't know. Second question comes from Twitter, and it asks, if there's no agreement whatsoever, what happens? Well, this is a very important question, and a question that the current British government is very careful about not answering. There's a general veil of secrecy and threat about what the potential outcome of a no deal outcome will be. The British government would like to say, or would like to think, and would like to say to its partners that if there is no deal at the end of this process, if the UK just leaves the EU without any agreement about its future relationship, the EU will suffer as much as the UK from this outcome. Now, it is true that a no-deal exit of the UK will be bad news for the European economy as well. There will be some disruption for sure, but the costs for the UK will be immeasurable. It simply means that the UK will automatically turn overnight at the end of the 2-year process into yet another country that has to trade with the EU under the terms and rules of the World Trade Organization. It will be simply a third country governed by no special deal, no special arrangement. This means that overnight the movement of products between the UK and the EU will become much more expensive, the movement of services will become much more difficult. The British government would like to say that it is an outcome that it is planning for, but in reality the UK cannot afford a no-deal Brexit. Our last question comes from A. Davlatov on Instagram, and he's asking, would the EU be better off without Britain? Now, thank you very much for the question, because this is the Brexitometer after all, and we are dealing with the UK first and foremost, but from time to time it's good to actually think about the EU as well. I think the prospects for the EU following Brexit are mixed. On the one hand, on the positive side, if you will, clearly Brexit has been a wake-up call for European elites, for European leaders, for politicians in countries such as Germany and France to think hard about the future of the EU. It is no coincidence that very shortly after Brexit, the Commission presented its paper about 5 possible scenarios about the future of the EU. So while Brexit has been a disruptive event for the EU, at least it has created the conditions for more debate, more discussion, to think harder about where the EU wants to head next without the UK. And we can say that this is a positive event. On the negative side, I would say that probably the worst impact of Brexit on the EU is that it upsets delicate balances inside the EU. For example, it upsets the balance between Eurozone and non-Eurozone members because it weakens the non-Eurozone camp significantly, and it creates questions about the cohesion of the single market beyond the Eurozone. Countries that are in the EU but are not in the Eurozone but play an important role in the single market, such as Denmark and Sweden, are very worried that they will be marginalized as more attention is focused on the Eurozone. But another way that Brexit will affect the EU, in a negative way I think, is that it will deepen the divide between the West and East. For Eastern European countries such as Poland and Hungary, the UK was always their way to be more smoothly integrated into the functioning of the EU. The UK always supported the extension and the functioning of the common market, from which these countries benefit a lot, and it has absorbed hundreds of thousands of immigrants from Central and Eastern Europe. Without the UK, Central and Eastern European countries will see that their partner whose interests were most closely aligned with them is basically gone, and that creates the potential for more frictions between West and East as the EU moves forward without the UK. So that was this week's Brexitometer. Many thanks for joining. Don't forget to keep sending me your questions using the hashtag Brexitometer on Facebook, Twitter and Instagram. Many thanks for joining and looking forward to our next meeting.
Mit der Akzeptanz der 4 Grundfreiheiten und dazu gehört auch die Freizügigkeit der Person. Brexit means Brexit.